How you doing?
Around the last few months.
I know, we missed you.
This is a whole different crowd.
I know, last month was so crowded. We had chairs all along the side. Oh, look at all of us. All right, I'm still seeing a line at the pier. Are you guys ready for data? Woohoo! We still have a few people in line, but we can go ahead and get started. They're just going to be looking at my slides anyway. How's everybody doing tonight? Yeah! How you liking the new citrus IPA? Good? You good with that? Awesome. All right, so we have a really, really awesome lineup tonight. Hey, should I blame it on Rick? I blame everything on Rick. He's not even paying attention. See, we can totally blame it on Rick. Rick is right there in the middle, just still talking and not paying attention to anything that's going on. Thank you, Rick. All right, thank you all. We have this heckling relationship. This is the first time I've been able to heckle him from up here, so it's perfect. All right, so tonight we have Albert Wavering, who is going to be talking about, in my opinion, the most beautiful weather forecast. It's an IoT project. After that, we have Paige Wheel or Weil. I should have asked you this earlier. Weil, who's going to be telling us all about the Mountain Search and Rescue, one of the oldest search and rescue groups. And after that, we have Daniel Glovin, who will be telling us how to leverage Airbnb data and make some money off of your properties and such. And afterwards, we have the room until about 8 o'clock. We will attempt to kill the keg. If we don't, no problem. But we'll socialize data style. All right. So thank you guys so much for being here. It's a beautiful, beautiful evening, and it's still sunny outside, and you guys are here expanding your minds with data stuff. So thank you very, very much. None of this happens without the organization team, and that's me, Tony. Our awesome founder, Justin. Jennifer, who is probably in Europe somewhere, snowboarding.
She'll watch the recording.
Hi, Jennifer. We have Greg, who's taking care of all of our tech stuff. Yeah. And our newest member, Eric, who's doing all of the tweeting and then some. How many people are familiar with Galvanize, this space that we're in? All right, a good amount. How many are on the mailing list? Pretty good amount, too. So we are not the only awesome meetup that they have here. They have all sorts of stuff and also developer tracks and data science tracks, and I highly encourage you to check it out if you want to find out any other awesome events going on. Yeah, so we don't make any money doing this. We do this because we flippin' love it and we love data. But if you guys are so inclined to chip in, it will help pay for the beer. You can chip in a couple of ways. We have a tip jar now tonight. And you can also go to the meetup and click the chip in and send it on to us, and we will be eternally grateful and continue to keep the beer flowing. All right, that's all I'm going to say about that. How do you what? Go to meetup.com to the Analyze Boulder site. Oh my God, busted. So I have to make all of the speakers repeat the question because it's not on the recording, and I did not repeat the question. So the question was, how do you chip in? So meetup.com, go to Analyze Boulder. There's a little button on the left navigation that says chip in. I'm also really embarrassed that I was asked to tell us how to give money. Give money. Okay. So, even though we meet once a month, we stay connected throughout the month. If you guys are not on the Slack channel, take a picture of this slide, email me, get an invite. A lot of chitter chatter back and forth. You can also hop on the LinkedIn, especially if you're looking for a job. It's a really, really great resource. Let those potential employers know that you're spending your beautiful Wednesday night here learning. And stay connected with Twitter at Analyze Boulder, and by all means, take pictures of us making weird faces in the middle of our talks and post them tonight. Yeah. Any more pictures? No. Okay, good. All right. So our next section is all about announcements, but I'm going to go ahead and be selfish since I have the mic and make an announcement about Go Code Colorado. Has anyone heard of this competition? A handful. Okay. So I was a participant 4 years ago during the first one, and we got fourth place, which is first place for people that didn't get any money. But it was so awesome that I decided to stay involved. I'm now a mentor. And Challenge Weekend is coming up this weekend, starting Friday night. It is at DU. And essentially all you have to do is use an open data set, build an app that helps Colorado businesses, and you could potentially win one of those three $25,000 prizes, go to Palo Alto, and automatically get into the Boomtown Classic Fall 2017. And we actually have at least one person from Boomtown here tonight. Where is he? Mark. Is it awesome?
Yes, right.
Totally worth it. So I'm going to open up announcements now, and just because I put Mark on the spot, I'm going to put him on the spot again. Can we Make Mark make an announcement. Actually, he's starting with jobs, so we'll start with jobs.
Let's go, guys. As she mentioned, co-founder of one of the companies in Boomtown. Our name is Heads Up. We're a really early stage company, and we're in the process of building predictive algorithms to solve specific business problems. And it's really apropos of one of the talks here tonight. It all revolves around weather. And we're starting with the restaurant industry. So we have a pilot program in the works. We have a couple of companies that are interested in that right now. And as far as the tech stuff is concerned, we're in search of a data scientist right now with experience, one that enjoys working in a team environment, really close to the environment. We're a small group right now. Our core value is one of this culture, so that's one of the big things for us. I'm not hugely about the tech verbiage here. My co-founder, he's more the tech guy, he's a software engineer. We're working on a Python stack right now. Our core product is what we need to be built. So if you're interested in doing something like that, definitely get in touch with me afterward. We're currently working with some bigger companies or recent talks with them. We have some pieces built of our software, but we really need to pull it all together and really grow it out. So find me afterward if you want to have a more conversation.
If you're ready to be a data scientist, buy him a beer. It's in the red cooler. Are there any other companies that are hiring? Any jobs available? All right.
Hi, I'm Scott. I work for Amazon Web Services. I'm working as a team here locally to predict failures in Amazon's network before they have customer attack. I have openings for a research scientist and for an experienced software engineer. So if you're interested in working with AWS, find me afterwards.
Awesome. Thanks, Scott. More jobs. All right, if you're looking for a job, you can go ahead and make an announcement too. Just make sure your boss isn't sitting next to you, especially if he or she doesn't know. Oh, we've got a job announcement in the middle back.
My name is James. I have a background in physics and math, a couple of years doing data analysis, and interested in working with data and getting insight and value out of the data. So that's interesting.
Awesome. Thanks, James. Any more jobs? In the back, way in the back. Thank you for making Greg run all the way around.
Hi, my name is Scott Sullivan. So I just graduated from the Galvanized Data Science program in Denver, and before that, my background is in physics and computer science. And I'm interested in data science, so if you have data science jobs, talk to me after.
Awesome.
For the people looking for jobs, I would get back out and check even Lockheed Martin's website. They have over 600 jobs posted right now in Colorado. Northrop Sierra Nevada, that sort of thing. And I put together a lot of small teams with small startups.
Thank you. So one of the best ways to get your next job is to do a little work on the side, on some side project. And I'm promoting Analyze Boulder here as well. Do the side project, get it in your portfolio, come give a talk for us, put that talk in your portfolio. But let's go back to anyone looking for a project that they're interested in putting together, or a hackathon that they want to announce, any sort of collaboration. Awesome. Going once.
All right, has anyone here heard of Data for Democracy? Nice. That's actually good, because I just heard of it like a few days ago, and I think it would be of interest to like everyone who shows up to this group. It's sort of this distributed civic hacking group that takes place mostly on GitHub and Slack, but has like hackathons every month or so in cities across the country. And I was in one in DC last weekend, but there wasn't one in Denver, and there might be next weekend. So if you join Slack, you know, it might happen. The projects are really cool. They're kind of related to stuff like working with local cities. So for example, Boston has one where they're predicting crashes using city data. There's one where they're trying to do election transparency by scraping like local election results and aggregating them out of PDFs. There's one where we're scraping far right, like white nationalist forums. And if you're interested in that, you can talk to me because I've been doing that a lot.
Will you post that link onto our Slack channel?
Sure.
Are you on our Slack
I'm
channel?
not.
I will get an email from you soon then, right?
Yes.
Yes! All right, think of announcements. Oh, good. We won't make Greg run then.
For a job. This is Zach Herring. With Echo User, we do UX stuff and UX research for everyone. Just to let you know, we have started a non-competing, not on the same night as this, meetup UXR. So if you're interested in user research, specifically in the quantitative and qualitative side, check it out. It's a UXR on Meetup. And also, if you just want to talk UX, I am here. We got 2 other amazing UX researchers and designers here as well. So come grab us afterwards. We're actually working upstairs. So.
I believe I was at your inaugural meetup, and it was amazing. It was really, really, really good. We have one in the front.
Hi, Red Range Community College is having a GIS Careers Open Table Night next Wednesday at 5 p.m. And they're interested in having anybody that wants to come, students, but they're also interested in having people that are in the industry host tables at their event. So if you are interested in a GIS Career Night hosting a table, or just go into it, talk to me.
Awesome. Awesome. Any other announcements or jobs, or if you really, really, really want to tell us a joke? All right, so we are going to get started. So Albert, you're going to be up first. Go ahead and get these switched over. But what we started doing recently is sort of seeding the conversation for later on after the talks. So a lot of us are mostly introverts. I'm sort of in between, even though I'm up here talking. Believe me, I want to go hide sometimes. But the topic tonight is think about the attributes of the best job that you've ever had. Or think about the attributes of the job that would be the best job you've ever had. And when you're in the beer line, talk about that. You ready? You ready for that? Awesome. Take it away.
All right. Thanks so much, Tony, and everyone else who puts this event together and makes it possible. Really appreciate it. So, hi everyone. Super great to have so many faces out here. I'm Albert Wavering. I work at a digital agency here in town called Viget. Most of the work we do is your pretty typical website or application design and build. That's 99% of what we do. But Viget is pretty unique in that we also have a hardware lab. So we have a dedicated space in our offices where we get to play around with electronics and servos, IoT devices, and sometimes we do that for clients, and sometimes we do it just for the hell of it. And so tonight, I'm going to be presenting a project that we did internally that is currently installed in our Boulder office. Please come down to 1815 Broadway and see it in person, but we call it Yield Future Temperometer. So Yield Future Temperometer is a very large internet-connected weather chart. It shows the temperature for the next 15 hours as a line graph. In this giant chart, we also have a tiny servo-actuated arrow down at the very bottom that points to one of the 3 cities. If you happen to select a city in the associated iPad app, that Viget has an office in, that's Boulder, Falls Church, and Durham. Or if it's elsewhere, that little pointer will swing around to indicate which city you're in. And hopefully we can see it in action here. So you can see that as we have changing temperatures over the next 15 hours, we actually update the positioning of this graph. We also, I'm sure you guys have noticed that we have an x-axis here for 15 hours, but we actually don't have any y-axis. And that's why we use color to indicate what temperatures are actually being used, because we want to scale the graph so that it takes up as much space in this wooden frame that we built as possible. So today I'm going to talk a little bit about the ideation, how we thought of this project, a little bit of the hardware and a little bit of the software behind it, and then hopefully have some time for questions. So thinking about the ideation, this project really started as something that we just wanted to do for fun. We do have an internal budget for just playing around with hardware, which is super awesome. We do some stuff occasionally for clients, but we also do stuff just for the hell of it. And so the main catalyst behind this idea was the idea that all of us work with data that lives in a computer screen every day, whether it's Excel, whether it's Google Analytics, whether it's something you built from R or Python. And even the best endowed of us only have a monitor that's like maybe 24 inches big. It's really pretty tiny in the grand scheme of things. And so we wanted to see if we could have a larger impact with data by pulling it outside of the screen, making it bigger and more tangible. We also wanted to see if 3D printed parts, so a lot of the custom stuff that we do for clients uses 3D printed parts that we install out in the field. We wanted to see if those 3D printed parts actually held up over the course of the year. Spoiler alert, they do. We actually have some very good performance from our 3D printed parts, but that was some of the motivation in building this thing. When it comes to hardware, the heart of ye olde future temperometer is just a strip of 5mm LED lighting. We actually had this lying around from an old project of ours and repurposed it for this one. So that part was really easy to get going. As I mentioned before, we 3D printed a bunch of different parts for this as well. Everything from brackets to some little string tensioners that we use. And you can see here, we actually have 6 of these little gantries that we use to move the LED strip up and down depending on the forecast for the next 15 hours. And so we got this running. We have this wooden frame. This is our hardware lab in Boulder. We also have one in HQ in Falls Church. But we quickly ran into the problem. It was like, okay, we got this all wired up. We have our pulleys working. We have servos at the top of each of those 6 gantries. That all works. We quickly ran into our first problem, which was when you're drawing a graph on a screen, you don't really care how long the actual path of the line is because they're just pixels. If it's too long, you just add some pixels. If it's shorter, you take pixels away. And that's really easy on a computer. But when you have an actual LED line, you have to be a little more careful about how you avoid things like this really ugly tail that's just hanging off the end here. And so we tackled that using 2 different techniques. The first technique was to build a spool that was tensioned so that it actually reeled up extra LED rope as the graph expanded or contracted. So that was one way we did it. The second way was actually, we're doing a lot of trigonometry already in order to calculate the path of how each of these 6 points should be articulated. And so we actually just calculated the predicted length of, we were like, what should the total path length be? And we turned LEDs off as they entered the spool based on that path length. And then we turn LEDs back on as they come out of the spool if we have a larger line. Because this was such a high-tech product, we thought it would be fun if we did some sort of throwback or retro styling. So we did things that were kind of stupid, like call it ye olde future temperometer. We added some fun typography and visual flourishes to it. Things like this Falls Church labeling and that city dial down below. We also added some pipes for absolutely no reason other than it looks kind of cool. In terms of software, this is all run off of Particle Wi-Fi board. Particle, for those of you who don't know, is a relatively inexpensive Wi-Fi board that makes it really easy to connect and flash software. You can actually flash software to it or flash code to it from a browser-based IDE, which makes it super, super easy. It's way too easy. It should be way harder. And get software pushed here. So in its current configuration, every hour it checks for Boulder weather. We also have an iPad app that is like the jankiest app ever. It's actually an image. It's a static image with 2 text fields on it. They're just overlaid. And if you plug in an actual location, whether that's a town or a city, the weather chart will update with that information. And really the temperometer is skinned as a weather chart, but it's really just an arbitrary line graph, right? Like you could toss almost any data in it and be able to graph it in a pretty cool way. The fact that we're using LEDs for this line instead of just regular old lights or like a rope or something like that means you can also add things like layer on effects. If there's going to be precipitation, you can like scatter the LEDs or make it look like there's some effect there. Right now we're just using that color for the temperature over the next 15 hours, but there's a lot more that you could do there in terms of graphing different data sets, in terms of showing dynamically how your data is changing over time. So now hopefully we have some time for questions.
Awesome, thank you.
Yeah.
Who's got the first question? Data viz, IoT.
We'll build you one for some amount of money.
I apologize if I'm being a little dense, but if the color is what is indicating the temperature is 9+ hours from now, what does the height indicate?
Yeah, so the question was if we're scaling the color of the LEDs to temperature, what is the y-axis, what is the height? And the answer to that is it is also temperature. We just use color as a sort of absolute way of showing within this bracket. So we have, for example, warmer temperatures are reds and oranges. When it gets into a colder range, it's blues and purples. So the movement vertically is also the general trend of temperature over the 15 hours. But yeah, color just shows you where that bracket is in the wide range of temperatures we have here in beautiful Colorado.
So cool. You talked about adding features like twinkling lights if it's supposed to be raining that hour. What's next?
That's a great question. Fortunately, we were able to get this launched purely as an internal project. But I think because of that, because it is launched and working as a forecast tool, it's kind of considered done. And we actually have some paying hardware work, which unfortunately I can't discuss here, but we have someone who's actually paying us to work on something that's like this. And so the good side of that is obviously we're getting paid to work on some stuff like this. But the unfortunate side of it is that we don't really have any time to make upgrades. But yeah, when we were brainstorming this, we had like a list of 100 ideas of just ways we could graph temperature and weather data. And we were able to implement, just a very small part of that. But yeah, I think in the future, more weather data. I'm also a web analytics guy, so getting things like Google Analytics data on there, whether it's like page views or sessions or conversions on your website. I think that would be really cool for a lot of companies to see. Just have like this giant readout of, okay, we signed up 15 people in the last hour, we signed up 30 people in the last 9 hours, things like that. It ends up being a really cool physical manifestation of things like that. I think really succeeds at its goal of bringing data out. It's just a matter of finding time to work on enhancements like that.
So the vertical axis, you could use some nice retro style old clocks with the flip numbers on them.
I like that, yeah.
Or have you thought about using the vertical axis to indicate the speed of the change of the temperature? Right? Like all that slope could indicate things are changing faster.
Yeah, absolutely. So the question was more of a comment that we could use some cool flippers, like number flippers, like you would see on a train chart or a subway chart. I assume those kind. Use those on our vertical axis. That sounds awesome. I'll talk to our hardware guys about it. But then also using the slope of the graph to show things like rate of change in temperature. So getting into your derivative and second derivative and calculus stuff. Yeah, that's a great idea. And the nice thing about the temperometer is that you do have these 3 dimensions. Even though it's a 2-dimensional chart, you do have the ability to, we actually, in the process of doing this, wrote an API that abstracts some of the more complicated, like it abstracts away the trig that you have to do, so that you can just pass values to it, and it'll figure out what parts need to move where, which colors they need to become, and does some of that math for you, so it's easier to pass some of that data in and get it displayed. But yeah, you have obviously the up and down, and you also have the color, and then any animation you choose to apply to the LED strip.
That sounds like a sequel talk.
Yeah, definitely.
Nice. We've got one more question, and then we'll move on.
Cool.
Can we see the video again?
Yeah, let's go back to it. Yeah, so this is, the way it's currently configured is it's set up in the DJ booth of our office. So Viget is a digital agency that moved into Kava. Kava was a bar that was on Broadway that actually went bankrupt. I think because they didn't serve alcohol, which in retrospect it's obvious why they failed. But they also had a DJ booth installed, which we inherited, and it took money to pull it out, so we just kept it. And so you can see this is like the front of the DJ booth where this thing is currently installed. There's a ladder on the left side there. You can actually climb up and hang out there if you want to. Yeah, we used it. It was a convenient place for us to put the temperometer. If anyone does want to check it out in person, please come by our office. We're at 1815 Broadway. We love having visitors and showing off the stuff we're working on. We're at Broadway and yeah, we're just off of Pearl and Broadway. Yeah, we're on Broadway. So yeah, come visit us. Yeah, thanks everyone.
Up next, we are going to Paige Wild to learn all about search and rescue.
Oh no. This happens every time.
Good to go?
Are you okay with that?
Yeah. So how do I advance it? Just right?
It should just do it over.
Did it scan auto or do I?
You have to.
Hit that. Okay, sounds good.
Yeah, we're all manual.
How's it going? How's everybody doing tonight? Been coming to these for a while, and I finally did a pet project, like Tony was suggesting, to actually, kind of put some of my hobbyist stuff to the test. But first, a question: how many of you have ever been to this magical, mystical place called Outside? Okay, how many of you ever hiked on a trail before in Boulder County? In Boulder County? Okay, this is relevant. How many? Yeah, there's a better question. How many of you have actually been part of a rescue operation? Good, we've been around for as long as we have. So, my name is Paige Weil. I'm presenting for the Rocky Mountain Rescue Group, which is a volunteer search and rescue team based here in Boulder County. I will try to keep the text PowerPoint to a minimum because I have some awesome pictures and graphics. But first, a plug. We're an all-volunteer nonprofit organization. We serve Boulder County specifically. We're one of the oldest volunteer search and rescue teams, mountain rescue teams in the country. And essentially what we do, the very, very short version is if you're hurt and an ambulance can't drive to you, in Boulder County, we come get you. But they're fun. So we search. We put in hundreds of man-hours of searching. But more than that, we rescue. So you're hurt, you're on a rock, you're on a trail. We get you off cliffs. We get you out of the woods, in Boulder Canyon, in the Indian Peaks, in the Flatirons, in the El Dorado Canyon, on Mount Sanitas. We pull you off the snow. This is Skywalker Couloir on south of Arapahoe Peak. Anytime, night or day, we're at your beck and call. I mean, don't call me, but call 911. But when and where do we do it? And that's kind of been my project. For a team of very tech-savvy engineers, which the team is probably more than half consulting engineer types, we had a surprisingly horrible way of presenting and sort of understanding our data. So I took it upon myself, because I wanted to learn Shiny, to build a dashboard in R using Shiny to sort of aggregate our SQL database into kind of a useful, digestible format. We have data since 1998, but the only good data is kind of since 2008, and that includes about 2,500 calls logged in this system. And I built this as a dashboard to sort of function on our internal database so that members and leadership can kind of look at this thing and really, on a very quick level, understand kind of how our missions happen. So this is a very crude map. The next part of my project is to actually turn this into, to do some more sophisticated mapping, but what you're seeing here is where were our missions in 2016. So where does search and rescue happen? So the little green inset box there is the Flatirons. And you can see that our missions are scattered throughout the county, with the vast majority being right up against the sort of southwest side of Boulder. Red dots are where we actually had to rescue somebody, where we went to the field and actually carried somebody out. Blue dots are searches, where we went looking for somebody, maybe they didn't actually need help. And then black is, it's dark outside and my phone has signal, but I still called 911 and I can see the lights of town, but I'm still not sure where to go. What we found a couple of things, and these are just some shots from the dashboard. We found that we have a busy season. So this is average rescues by week. with the kind of plateau of the orange being at about 5 rescues per week. So the top of the red is about 7 rescues a week is sort of our max, but our average is about 5 rescues a week in the summer, with down to about 2 a week in the winter. So people like to get hurt in the summer. Just remember that. We are getting busier. So over the last, out of the last 9 years, we found an increasing uptick in missions, and I sort of have a very crude kind of forecasting methodology built in here based on missions remaining in a given year, plus the amount of missions that have happened this year already. But what we found is there's generally an upward trend. As more people show up, some small percentage of them get hurt, and we have to get some percentage of them. So when do people actually get hurt? So if you're doing anything Saturday at noon or Sunday at 3, consider staying inside and putting on a padded rugby helmet. We do have a not insignificant number of missions in the middle of the night, 2 o'clock in the morning, 3 o'clock in the morning. And the one other interesting stat is while most of the people that we rescue are recreationalists, hikers, bikers, skiers, climbers, ATVers, we found that the weekday total, the sum of Monday through Friday, is actually the same as the weekend total, Saturday, Sunday. So people are equal opportunity injured. We have about 70 members on the team, and we have logged on average about 4,500 man-hours of actual mission response time, not including the equivalent amount of training time that we put in. We're a very passionate group of people. We all love the outdoors. We love helping people. And it shows in this beautiful plot here. And this is cumulative man-hours by day of the year, and you can sort of see the busy season appear in that gray box again when the graph starts to go like that. So when do our people show up? This is another thing sort of helpful for leadership. So you have, this is average number of members that actually responded to each of these missions because we log all that for our attendance requirements. And while we find that the really interesting thing is while we have no formal requirements for when people respond, no one's on call, no one's paid, we get about 12 members on average. A little less on the weekdays, a little more on the weekends, a little better when people are free, kind of mid-afternoon. And there's this spike at about 7 o'clock on Wednesdays, which just happens to be when our long, boring meetings are. So that may tell you something. People decide to go running for the hills. I'll get through this real quick. The main utility of this dashboard is for us to understand and kind of communicate to our membership how our missions happen so that they can keep in their minds when they need to be available. Where can we cache? There are some other questions that kind of come along with this, including where to cache gear, how to forecast missions, how have our mission types, frequencies, etc. changed over time, and that's kind of the pitch for the next, the next possible Analyze Boulder I might give. Okay, last pitch, real quick because I'm running out of time. If you're injured in Boulder County or in Colorado, in any county in Colorado, call 911. Rescue is free. If you have to get an ambulance ride, if you have to get a helicopter ride, that's different. If you're so injured that you require pain medication or medical intervention, that's different. But if you need rescue, if you have a broken leg, arm, ankle, friend, whatever, call 911 and we will come and get you. If you don't call 911, you risk more injury. Then we have to come rescue a more injured person who's probably cold. Their friends are in worse shape, and it's now at night. So with that, I'll open it up for questions. And again, my name's Paige, and the group is the Rocky Mountain Rescue Group.
So you said that rescue is free, which is great, but how do you get your funding?
That's a good question. So so to give you guys some, yes, that's a good question. I'll now repeat it. So she asked where we get our funding from. So our team is, like I said, 70 volunteers, and we've logged some ungodly number of man hours, and we're all volunteer. For a volunteer team that has its own facility and 2 trucks, our annual operating budget is about $80,000 for the team, and we function about half on donations, about 2/3 on, or about 1/3 on funding from the Boulder County Sheriff's Office, who were formerly dispatched through, and then the rest, sort of, I'm not going to do the math right now, is from various grants and applications and donations. So, yeah.
Okay, so have you done any attempt to gather information on demographics, like let's just say the climbers, how experienced they are, how able they are? I mean, is it the experience of climbers? Is it the young climbers? Is it the people who actually just thought they were climbers, or they changed climbers who suddenly decided they might go out of it? I
that sounds so interesting, Dennis, but
Yeah, so the question was, to distill the question a little bit, have we found any insights into what demographics make up the people who actually need rescue, and specifically kind of on the climber side? And it's sort of interesting. First of all, the N for that study is very small. So the N, the sample size of the number of climbers who are actually injured and need our rescue is fairly small relative to our overall population. It's about a quarter of our actual rescues and maybe 10% of our actual response. But to get to the heart of your question, really, there have been a number of studies done by other agencies, and we haven't really found anything to be significant. Well, it kind of runs the gamut. You have very experienced people who get horribly injured in these awful accidents, and then you have people who were just inexperienced and just had bad luck. So you really have everything in between. Like, I couldn't walk into, short of somebody kind of being drunk and being a jerk and expecting that they're going to do something dumb. There's really few people that I can point to and say, oh, that's, good chance that guy's going to be the one who gets hurt.
I just thought about, you said the average was 12 for rescue. Is it true that 86 would be timed off, but it was
Sorry, is this true? I might have to have another beer before I answer this question. I think the rescue he's referring to is there was a student who was naked and intoxicated on a number of hallucinogenic substances who was running through the Flatirons. He's suggesting that maybe there was a statistically significantly high number of rescuers. I will refute that by saying we had an appropriate number of rescuers. But we got her down fine.
This is sort of related to the previous question. I was going up Sanitas recently and someone hurt their ankle and they were getting rescued by like 20 people and that person ended up really horrified. So I'm wondering, because they thought like 2 people would come help her walk down the hill. So I'm wondering, how do you plan how many people show up? And do you have data on the type of injuries people sustain and how many people that requires to help make those decisions?
So that's a really good question, and that's a really complicated one from a number of perspectives. Yes. So, and now I'll repeat the question. So she's asking, how do we determine the appropriate number of people to respond to a given mission based on the severity of the injuries? Is that kind of the heart of it? So the hard part with this is when we're dispatched, we get imperfect information. So our dispatch comes in kind of a 3 or 4 sequence game of telephone. Sometimes the person's hurt, they tell their friend to call 911. That friend actually runs down the hill and tells someone else to call 911, who talks to a dispatcher who has no idea what kind of injuries actually happen in our mountain environment, and then they page us out. So sometimes the information's perfect and it's great, and we have the appropriate level of response. Hey, I'm lost, it's not a big deal. We send 1 or 2 people. And then sometimes we have something as simple as fallen climber with massive head injury when the guy slipped off a trail and just sort of scraped his head. So we tend, because we're all volunteer and we're not spending anybody's money inappropriately by doing this, apart from, all of our own gas and gear is paid for by ourselves. The way we kind of determine that is we err on the side of send too many people, and then we'll kind of limit that based on how many people we know are ready to respond to a secondary call. So we won't tap the whole team out if we have an intuition that it might not need it. Once we have kind of above 12 to 15 people, we'll cut people off and say, just wait in town, there might be another one Sunday, 3 o'clock. Yeah. Yeah, and so there's another sort of aspect to what you're saying too, which is the number of people that show up, like, is that an actually appropriate number? And even though Mount Sanitas, for those of you who've hiked it, seems relatively easy to sort of hike up, and it's not a big deal, if you have a broken ankle, like really an ankle where you cannot put any weight on it and you're a mile from a trailhead, that task becomes pretty daunting. Like, if there was literally nobody there to help you, it could take you many hours to sort of drag yourself out. So our default is to put you in one of our litter baskets that I'll back up to. Our default is to put you into one of our baskets and then just carry you, because we can carry you way faster than you can hobble. And we do really try to talk to our patients on a regular basis. We don't treat them just like bags of meat. We actually talk to you and try to, reassure them and make sure that the person isn't feeling overwhelmed, nauseous, or had too much anxiety from the situation, apart from kind of what naturally comes. So,
Paige, thank you so much. He has a ton of stories, so be sure to bombard him at the end. All right, we have our last speaker. We have Daniel, and I'm blanking on your last name, Clevin, Airbnb. I know he was waiting in the back. Is he hiding? Oh my God, it's like you're so impossible to see. All right, Daniel.
Another quick round of applause for Paige and Rocky Mountain Rescue. They do a good job. I've seen you guys in action. It's great. Thanks a lot. So yeah, my name's Dan. I live in Denver. I work for a little startup called AirDNA. I have a background in analytics and just random data visualization jobs in mechanical engineering, but I've been doing data science for the past year. My presentation is on how you can use data science to sort of game the short-term rental economy, how Airbnb is changing the way that real estate is valued, and a little product I'm working on at my company sort of in that realm.
Red arrows. Sorry. Oh no!
There we go, got it. Cool, so whether you guys know it, Airbnb is inherently changing the way that real estate's valued. A quick backstory about sort of how our company was started. So our CEO, he was living in Santa Monica at the time, kind of working the corporate grind, decided he needed to go kind of find himself in Southeast Asia. So like anyone would do, he was renting a place and he decided, I should probably not just vacate my place for 3 months, I should probably try to rent it out. So Airbnb was kind of coming up at the time, and he decided to rent it on Airbnb. He had a buddy that was fun employed, and carless, and he said, hey man, like you take my car and you rent my place on Airbnb and we'll split the profits. So when he was on his trip, he started to realize that he was making back more than what he was renting his place for. So yeah, he was paying his rent and making some profit, and he thought, that's kind of weird. I'm charging them like rates that are competitive with hotels in the area, but I feel like my property, my residential property, isn't worth as much per square foot as maybe the hotels in the area. And so it kind of led him to believe that residential real estate was undervalued compared to, say, hotels. And so what we started to notice was that residential properties, specifically properties that are sort of in that right circle, were being undervalued. So maybe places that had certain characteristics that you wouldn't normally think would boost the value of real estate, like a separate
Hold
interest.
the microphone closer to your mouth.
Thank you. This is better. So yeah, traditionally people would look at like the school district. Is there a lot of peace and quiet around where you live? But now we're seeing that some properties can be undervalued when they might be more valuable and have things like kitchenettes and separate interests and stuff like that. So, how's real estate currently valued? So, kind of on a mass scale and automatically, properties are valued using things called AVMs, automated valuation models, where basically the value equals data plus math, and that's basically what your estimate is. Things like that, where you take data about the property and comps in the area to determine, how much your property's worth. And yeah, it's just a technology-driven report. So these properties that may be undervalued, that could probably make a killing on Airbnb, what do we do about that? How do we account for that? So what I'm working on is an AVM for short-term rentals. So given an arbitrary address, maybe predict how much you could make as a short-term rental, tack that onto the traditional value, and then you can have a new, updated, more accurate property value. So the way I do it is use data from comparable properties. What's tricky about this is that when you're doing sort of a traditional AVM, you look at how much properties in the area are worth, and you say, well, my next door neighbor's house is worth $500,000, so maybe mine's worth about that. What's tricky about Airbnb is that properties are only rented full-time about 20% of the time. So you can see here, you've got this calendar, and this property is blocked out half the time. So it's pretty hard to predict what your property is going to make an Airbnb when all the comps nearby are only rented for 2 weeks a year. And so what we've had to do is determine this thing called a revenue potential for the comps. So say your property made X amount of money this time of the year, predict how much it would make as a full-time rental. So here's an example of a tricky market. So Breck. Breck has a high degree of seasonality. And say we want to determine how much a property would make on Airbnb in Breckenridge. It's tricky because they're not rented throughout the entire year. So say we knew a month of data about a property that was in Breckenridge, and we wanted to predict how much it would make throughout the entire year. It's pretty tough because there's a high degree of seasonality. You've got people ripping groomers in January and getting face shots in March, and those are the times when you're really gonna make more money. And so what we've had to do is determine this thing called RevPAR, which is revenue per available rental. And when you basically look at how much revenue places make throughout the year, you can determine seasonality and sort of predict what you're going to make throughout the year. So why do we do revenue potential? Revenue potential is useful to determine good places to invest. So it's pretty interesting. When you calculate revenue potential using seasonality and everything I just talked about, and then you look at the mortgage costs, you can actually identify really good places to invest. So like Palm Springs, you wouldn't think would be a great place to buy property, maybe necessarily, but with these music festivals and stuff like that, you can get really cheap properties and make a ton on Airbnb. Same with some places in Hawaii where you've got these really pricey resorts. Airbnb is a great way to compete there. Bend, Oregon is a bunch of hipsters, and they seem to be people that love Airbnb, so that's just the reason that that's a great place. Nashville too, Tennessee is like a pretty cheap place to buy real estate, and there seems to be like a lot of bachelor parties there and stuff, so that place also crushes it. And then the worst places are places where you would think, oh, I want to live there. Typically there's a lot of competition, it's sort of oversaturated. Miami, yeah. So. And then yeah, this is sort of the end product of what I'm working on. Given an address, I can tell you how much it's going to make on Airbnb by month throughout the year, what kind of rates you should charge, what kind of occupancy you're going to have, and then we also display like the comp properties, how much they're making and what they're charging and stuff like that. So yeah, so hopefully a pretty useful product and something that people will be interested in. So yeah, thank you.
I've got two questions. First, I'm just wondering what your stack was, what tools do you use?
Yeah, sure. So typical data science stack, so Python. We have an Amazon RDS, PostGIS RDS. That's our database. Yeah, coding in Python, and then I use a lot of QGIS and GIS products for mapping stuff and creating boundaries and maps and stuff like that. And then all the data science libraries within Python.
And then this front end bit, is it like React?
Oh yeah, this is Angular. Yeah.
And the second question was, how far back did you have to scrape Airbnb data to get the analytics patterns?
So yeah, we've been scraping for about 2.5 years. And that is, yeah, that's definitely a good amount of data at this point. But yeah, it did take some time to build that base up. And then we're also working on partnerships with channel managers, which are people that will rent your property across all platforms. And so we've got some partnerships with them. They're giving us data as well. So we'll have more than just Airbnb.
Hi there. I'm just curious about your target audience and how you're planning to market this for a data tool.
Yeah, that's a good question. This is a recent development, so we're trying to figure out the best way to market it. It's more towards people that probably already own maybe 1 or 2 properties and are looking to see how much they could make if they were to rent it. It's probably less geared towards people that have a ton of money and are just like, hey, I want to throw my money at Airbnb, where do I go? So I'd say, yeah, people that own properties or that are trying to rent them, people that are maybe looking to buy like a second home can rent it on Airbnb, just kind of maybe more like small town people. Because yeah, you do, it's like, you know where you live, you know where you are, you know where you want to go, how much you're going to make type thing, so. Does that answer?
Is there already something like this on Zillow? If not, I imagine this would be a really interesting data point on Zillow.
Yeah, so not Zillow, but we're looking at putting it on other company sites, specifically ones that do long-term rentals. Because there are APM tools for long-term rentals, but not short-term rentals. And so some people are talking to us and they want to throw it on their site and say like, oh, here's how much you can make long-term, but then just FYI, you can make this much in Airbnb too. So yeah.
Yeah, so I was wondering how you take into account regulatory effects. I know that Boulder recently passed a regulation that limits the number of nights you can rent short-term rental. Is there a way to gather that data and you account for that in your model?
So we don't currently use that in the model, but we are trying to figure out the best way to do that. Right now, it would just sort of be like compile some sort of database and display it based on where you search for. You'd be like, hey, just FYI, in this market, there's these regulations, but we feel like it's inherently sort of taken care of in the data because maybe places with strict regulations will have, lower occupancy or no Airbnb or whatever. So yeah, it is a tricky thing. Like Miami, New York, San Francisco, Boulder, tough places. So.
Any more questions? One more question.
I was just wondering, how affiliated with Airbnb are you? Like, did you scrape their data, or did they give it to you? Do they know about you guys?
Yeah, they know about us, and they've known about us for like 2.5 years, since the beginning. Yeah, technically, yeah, it's a tricky situation. We do have a relationship with them. It's sort of just like they let us be, we obviously let them be because we can do anything. They're pretty big. Yeah, they let us be. I think they might see that there's some value when we provide. We encourage people to do short-term rentals and stuff like that. So, yeah, there's a relationship and it's fine.
Sounds very symbiotic.
Yeah.
Awesome. Daniel, thank you so much. All right, have you guys been thinking about your best job, your dream job, and what it was, or what it is, or what it should be? All right. Thank you guys so much for being here. It is time to enjoy the beer, enjoy each other's company, and have a great night. Thank you. You were rescued?
Hey, what's up, man? How much? How you doing? Good, good. You on camera right now? Not anymore. No, hold on. Let me cancel this camera. Hi.